A pleasure to meet all at last. And so, right off the bat, I'm just gonna go on ahead and say, it has been a while since the last time I did anything related to GWK, the First Impressions. Well, for the most part, I did take off throughout all of December. Mostly because I had a lot of other work I needed to do on the channel. And more off, I feel like that some other things would also need to be done. Here in 2025, I do plan on doing a lot of things for the channel itself, as well as most other things in life. There will be some events that I'll attend, there will be some trips I'll have made throughout the year, and there will also be a good amount of different activities, as well as some investments that I'm gonna have to spend some time working on. So this will in fact call for some, let's say, cutbacks on production of this stuff. And I am hoping that I won't have to totally cut back on this for a long period of time. But apart from that, I feel like that it's time that we focus on some more newer games. One in particular that I'm going to be talking about for this instance is known as Dogman Mission Impawsible. Yeah, that's Paw, P-A-W. And this game came out several months ago. Some might wonder, why would I bother talking about a game that's this old already? Well, for the most part, within a couple weeks, we're gonna have ourselves a Dogman movie. Yeah, and this is something I never actually tried before. There's a game adaptation of Dogman, the comics entirely that were made from it, and since we're about to get a movie based off of it, I figured, why not go ahead and showcase my own impressions based on the video game adaptation before the movie comes out. I guess one could say that the video game was made supposedly as an adaptation or even a straight up advertisement for the film, kind of like how some other games were put together. I mean, there's no doubt about it, there's a lot of licensed games out there based on certain properties like Transformers, Nickelodeon, and even King Kong, but I don't need to go into detail on most of that stuff. A lot of it is just Game Mill, OG, and Microids garbage. But in this case, Dogman Mission Impossible was actually made possible because of Mindscape. Yeah, have you ever wondered what Mindscape was? Well, you might remember them all the way from the days of the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short, where Mindscape was actually around to create some licensed-based games. Indiana Jones, Terminator, and even Mad Max. So it's quite clear by now that Mindscape has been well known in the art of creating video game adaptations based off of certain movies and other such properties. And for something like this, being more recent compared to most of the others, how does it stack up? Because not all of Mindscape's games were favored by gamers all around. Some might think that the first Terminator game on NES was pretty terrible, which a lot of us will agree to. How does Dogman turn out though? Well, I'll say that first of all, Dogman Mission Impossible starts off with an opening cutscene supposedly showcasing some evil crooksters. Basically, with the Super Buddies, which are basically a trio consisting of 3 characters. You have Dogman, who can become a superhero, and you have a little cat and a robot, whom are also superheroes. This can mostly be accomplished by collecting hearts, which also count as health. But on top of all doing all that, there's also bones that you can collect. And bones, they're actually, believe it or not, how you collect crowns. The main basis of the game is collecting crowns. Don't really pay too much attention to the bones or the hearts. The only reason you can have hearts is because you can get max health and turn yourself into a hero. And with the bones, the only real reason to collect those is to grab a hold of 1 crown. Yeah, 3 out of 4 crowns you can get throughout the level itself, while the bones just add in the 4th crown for extra measure. And when you make it to the end of the game, you're ended up giving 1 of the crowns anyway. So you get 1 free crown for the news team. And basically, each and every level is a platformer with some puzzle elements along the way. Of course, you can't exactly attack or kill enemies, but you can stun them by jumping on their heads. So it kinda calls back to another thing that the NES was remembered for. Jumping on giant mushroom guys known as Goombas. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's at least a good harken back to those days. Mindscape and Nintendo had gone together pretty well over the years. But again, Mindscape wasn't all that favorable compared to most other publishers and developers of the time. So of course with the first world, we have ourselves the city, and then we make our way over to the cop station in which that Dogman superior officer ends up getting locked in his own jail from the bad guys, and you have to go rescue him. And I will say that that is actually where we cut off here, because I had made it to the third world, in which 5 different worlds contain 10 levels each. You have yourself 9 levels along with a boss battle. And sometimes there's extras involved. With 8 levels that you play through normally, that's basically 7 levels and a boss. But then of course there comes a few secret stages in total, adding up to 10 in total for each world. So that's 50 levels in total that you play through. But of course, since each of them are rather short, it's expected that you could finish the entire game within only a few hours time. And I will say that it ain't a great runtime from start to finish. They definitely could have had a little more time focusing on other things about this adaptation. They could have gotten a little more creative even. There's actually the elements to where you can build gadgets, and some of which that I've found will include the ability to move giant boxes, a grappling hook, and some other things that have also shown up in the game entirely. But in all seriousness, Dogman Mission Impossible is probably on the more, I guess, middle of the road territory. So not exactly something I would consider a masterpiece by any means, but from what I've seen so far, it at least does a good job, not only at being a side-scrolling platformer, but also giving us what we need to know. Because when the movie comes out on January 31st, we are certainly expected to see a lot of stuff happen. And more often than not, I'm sure that the movie will be just as good. I mean, you got some familiar voices in there. Kind of like a certain other movie. Yep, Captain Underpants. I almost wonder why there was no game adaptation of that. Well, in any case though, Dogman Mission Impossible. I'd say it's a good way for me to build up all the anticipation that I need to eventually work my way to the theater to watch the movie. And I'm sure that sometime I will come around and talk a bit more about the movie itself. But until then, the game is all I have. And I'll probably finish it up sooner than later and maybe give out a more full and detailed review of the game entirely from the ground up. So I'll see you guys again in GWK The First Impressions, hopefully with Sniper Elite Resistance or something like that. Otherwise, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side.